Classroom of the Elite has always been one of those anime that's eluded me when it comes to understanding its appeal. I knew it was extremely popular when the anime first came out in 2017 and saw that the light novels were consistently top sellers. I tried to give Classroom of the Elite a chance 2 years ago, but couldn't get through the first season. After hearing that season 2 and 3 were coming out over 5 years after the first season, I assumed that Classroom of the Elite's anime would be dead upon arrival, but it defied my expectations and is still going extremely strong when it comes to popularity. Recently, I tried diving into Classroom of the Elite's anime again, and throughout the first season, I wasn't really impressed at all. However, as time went on and I was soon eagerly starting season 3, I realized that Classroom of the Elite was far better than I had given it credit for, and I found myself slowly crossing out my growing pains when it came to this anime with each coming arc. Despite going into Classroom of the Elite with negative expectations, I left more excited than ever, and it's all thanks to this man, Kiyotaka Ayanokoji, the character I can always look at and say, let him cook. To fully understand what Classroom of the Elite did in order to vastly change my opinion on it, I gotta start with what rubbed me the wrong way when it came to the initial impressions and the first few arcs. Classroom of the Elite's setting was interesting enough, taking place in a highly prestigious, isolated high school that had flexible hierarchy, unique exams, dubious morals, and an interesting point system. You see, I was kind of expecting Classroom of the Elite to be one of those gimmicky shows set in high school featuring a bunch of extremely exaggerated, unrealistic characters who all gathered to glaze the main character, who is seemingly a nonchalant genius. My first impression of Ayanokoji was, wow, if I was in middle school, I'd totally idolize this guy and constantly say, he's just like me for real, while the buttons are popping out of my shirt and my fingers are covered in Dorito dust inside of a musty, pitch black basement. Pair this with characters like Suzune, who seemed like a Yukino ripoff, Kushida, an airhead who I thought would be the designated moron of the show, Ryuen, a high schooler who goes around with a whole ass bodyguard and waterboards people, etc, etc. You get what I'm saying. It wasn't looking good. I'll acknowledge the fact that generalizing characters like this and writing them off, even though I haven't seen their arcs, isn't really a proper way to enjoy media, but that's what makes Classroom of the Elite's turnaround for me that much better. Despite the anime being called Classroom of the Elite, most of the characters in Ayanokoji's class felt like utter morons. I know they're in Class D, but isn't this one of the hardest schools in Japan to get into? Due to my poor first impressions of the characters, I found myself feeling skeptical when it came to the specialized tests that would go on within the school and the point system itself. I assumed it would be a gimmick that wore off later on, since there are only so many ways you can make exams interesting, and the point system seemed like it was only going to be a wallet for students. I didn't think classes outside of Ayanokoji's would have any meaningful characters and would just be filled with hilariously evil high schoolers that Ayanokoji would take down with his wit, while everyone is left completely bamboozled. The large amount of fan service wasn't helping either. I had a feeling it was just going to be the Ayanokoji show, and that every other character existed to prop him up or take him down in a very black and white manner. Boy, was I so wrong about Classroom of the Elite, and honestly, I'm glad I was. First of all, my assumption about the exams being administered to the 4 classes within a grade being gimmicky and unimportant was thrown out the window after the very first arc. There's clearly a lot of thought that's being put into these exams, and there's a fair amount of options, each with their own risks and rewards. A lot of edge cases have been considered by the proctors of the exams as well, so characters really have to think and be creative with their intel if they want to get a leg up for any of these exams. These exams aren't strictly written exams either. They can be basically anything from an island survival game to an exam that requires everyone in a class to vote to boot one of their homies out and have them expelled from the school. Classroom of the Elite cleverly designed its exams so that every single exam isn't a simple class versus class battle, and many times we get to see characters from different classes get grouped together for a specific exam, like during the VIP test. However, even during these tests, students still need to somehow propel their class forward while directly working with other classes, which adds an extra layer of complexity to these exams. The stakes are very real in Classroom of the Elite, and navigating through exams properly requires smart usage of the point system, as points can be used to buy basically anything. Anything you can think of, even the most ridiculous request, probably has a point total attached to it, which makes the point system itself all the more interesting, since students have to rely on their wit not only for the good of the class, but to also make their lives at school easier as well, since points are dough. Even if the exams are gigabrain 5D space checker simulators, they wouldn't really have much of an impact on me if they were all taken down by Ayanokoji with ease in ways that other characters can't even comprehend. If the main character is just some mastermind from the shadows who tries to mind his own business and is clearly superior to every other student, even those from Class A, then what's the point? That's where I'm once again wrong about Classroom of the Elite. There are so many characters in this anime, and when I mean characters, I don't mean background reaction image merchants, but actual characters with actual distinct characterization and arcs that progress at quite a good pace. One of the best things about Classroom of the Elite is that the classes themselves are not monoliths. Not everyone has the same goal, and not everyone within a class likes each other, so there's lots of shady shenanigans going on between classes, so you never know who's telling white-faced lies and secretly going behind everyone's backs to divulge important information to enemy classes. This kind of behavior isn't discouraged either. You can straight up transfer to any class you'd like to for 20 million points, and often these dealings are paid for with said points, which means you could be the biggest dickhead in the world and constantly stake your class while racking up funds to transfer. The best example of this is Kushida, who I initially thought was an insufferable dumbass, just for it to be revealed that she's actually quite the conniving, attention-hungry person who wants to bring the downfall of Suzune and Ayanokoji. We see her time and time again give information to enemies to hurt her class, and even after Ayanokoji bamboozles her, she doesn't magically turn good and still has a very tense relationship with him. As for the opposing classes, although not each character within those classes is fleshed out like Class D's, there are still memorable characters in each class that are always pulling crazy schemes in order to get ahead. The gap between Class A and D is constantly shown by the way the members of those classes handle themselves, with Class D often looking like naive ruffians in the beginning while Class A is cold and calculated. The person who embodies this philosophy is the leader of Class A, Sakayanagi, and there's a central figure like her for each of the other classes. For Class C, there's Ryuen, who basically runs the class like a dictator, and for Class B, there's Ichinose, who believes in the strong bond between her classmates and will do everything she can to make sure no one gets expelled from her class. All of these leaders embody their classes and have distinctive personalities, and they're all pretty damn smart. The way each of them tackles a specific exam is entirely different, and they're always thinking 10 steps ahead. I got to see their genius in action through Suzune, as throughout the first couple of exams I saw her logically go through the best course of action for a specific exam, just for her to be played like a fiddle by one of the leaders of another class. Although some actions taken by other classes may seem illogical during an exam, at the end, it's always revealed that the corresponding leader saw through the exam and acted in that manner in order to be on top. It's very clearly shown that the leaders are in a tier of their own, which further enhances the genius of Ayanokoji himself. This guy rocks, and it's not because he's this super intelligent specimen of a human that always plans 20 steps ahead and somehow gets the smartest characters in the anime dancing to his tune while he constantly looks like this. If he was just some charming Mary Sue that propelled Class D to A because of his goodwill and genius, Classroom of the Elite would completely fall apart. My first impressions of Ayanokoji were, damn, this dude only has one face. What is he, a robot? He's trying too hard to be an emotionless, edgy badass. Then I saw snippets of his backstory get masterfully dropped into each of the seasons, building up my intrigue for him a lot. Eventually I found out that this dude is seemingly a robot because he was raised as a human guinea pig by his own father and was completely stripped of human touch and warmth. He isn't some bright-eyed fella who wants to be the king of the school and reach Class A. He's genuinely trying to stay at school for 3 years in the shadows and quietly enjoy his first taste of freedom before being shipped back into a soulless laboratory. However, his hand is often forced due to actions taken by characters he can't really control, like his own teacher. Because of his desire to not be in the spotlight, Ayanokoji usually pushes his plans through other classmates, and even then, he never really tells anyone what his full plan is until it's all said and done. Ayanokoji spends a lot of time forming connections with characters both in his class and outside of it. As Classroom of the Elite progressed, Ayanokoji's social presence got amplified, and he's soon seen saving someone from bullying, forming a tight friend group, and propelling Suzune to step out of the shadow of her older brother and be her own person. To pull off things like this would require a high level of emotional intelligence, which Ayanokoji possesses due to his time in the White Room. He's always able to say the right thing or act in the proper manner at the right time, and is seen giving genuinely good advice to others and listening to them in order to lift them up. I found myself liking Ayanokoji more and more as I saw him form connections with a bunch of characters who all had their own problems. I thought he was finally learning to be more human throughout the first season, just for it to be revealed that he genuinely doesn't have emotional attachment to any of these characters and sees them as nothing more than tools. It gave me chills seeing Ayanokoji deliberately wait for Suzune to be ill so she had to forfeit during the island exam, or him waiting for Kei to be waterboarded before saving her just so that their bond is further solidified. This guy is kinda heartless, and it's all due to his upbringing. I really like that Classroom of the Elite didn't rush his development throughout the first year, and I got to see him slowly but surely change. He's the engine that keeps Classroom of the Elite going, and he's one of the most unique main characters I've ever seen in this kind of setting. It's crazy that the anime's only finished the first year, and so many things had happened, with 2 more years remaining. It's even crazier that the anime obviously cut a bunch of stuff from the light novel, yet I was still this moved by Ayanokoji. This isn't even including the amazing character development of characters like Suzune, Manabu, and a whole lot of others. The cast for this show was seriously stacked. I'm sorry for doubting you, Classroom of the Elite. You may not be the prettiest anime, but the writing is so good and well thought out that it doesn't even matter.